Hi there, welcome to the latest episode of my 10-minute moan. The topic of this 10-minute moan is a bizarre situation where 57 out of the 477 Scottish prisoners released over the summer have reoffended, many of whom within the first 2 days of release. This story is a bit mental, and it's about the burst prison problem we have across the UK, to be fair. But this particular story is covered by Sky News, and it concentrates purely on Scotland. So what we've got here is a headline: dozens of criminals freed early from Scottish prisons to tackle overcrowding returned to jail after reoffending. A total of 477 inmates were let out early in Scotland in 4 tranches over the summer to tackle overcrowding. We have seen a similar problem, to be fair, in English and Welsh prisons as well, where they released thousands as well. Dozens of criminals who were freed early from Scottish prisons under an emergency release system have allegedly reoffended and been returned to jail, it has emerged. A total of 477 inmates were let out early in Scotland in 4 tranches over the summer to tackle overcrowding, with 57 returning to prison up to the 18th of September after reportedly committing further offences. The recorded index offence groupings for which people returned to custody included non-sexual crimes of violence, that's the highest one, where there's 20 violence, crimes of dishonesty 17, damage and reckless behaviour less than 5, crimes against society 8, antisocial offences 8, miscellaneous offences less than 5, and others not classified less than 5. No idea what they could be. The tally of 57 people includes inmates who have been charged and reconvicted, others who were being held for alleged offences, and those who had already been released from custody after being remanded for an alleged offence. The Scottish Prison Service said those who returned to custody remained in the community for between 2 and 61 days, with an average time in the community of only 22 days. An SPS spokesperson said, "We have been open and transparent throughout, publishing a number of individuals released at each stage, followed by a series of breakdowns. The latest publication on return to custody continues this approach. Only inmates serving short sentences of under 4 years who had 180 days or less left to serve were considered for release. Prisoners serving life sentences or those currently behind bars for sexual, domestic abuse or terror-based offences were automatically excluded from the scheme. Prison governors also had the power to veto the release of any inmate they deemed an immediate risk to specific individual or groups." The decision was made amid a spike in prison population numbers, while Justice Secretary Angela Constance said she was putting the estate at critical risk. Last month, First Minister John Swinney said the early release of prisoners had not solved the situation in regards to overcrowding. Speaking before the Holyrood Conveners Group at the Scottish Parliament, he said, "We still face a serious situation, and I fully expect the Justice Secretary to have to come back to Parliament to brief Parliament about the current situation." A separate report published by the Scottish Government puts the projected prisoner population between 7,750 and 9,250 at the beginning of next year. Prisons have been struggling under the weight of high populations in recent years, with 8,274 people in custody as of September 27th. The Scottish Government said, "Whilst no level of reoffending is acceptable, we do not want any more victims of crime. The return to custody rate for those released under the scheme was substantially lower than the average reconviction rate for those serving 4 years or less." Well, there you go. It's trying to say it was good. They'll get less crime. Speaking to Sky News in June, Victim Support Scotland warned the system would lead to reoffending. Kate Wallace, the charity's chief executive, said, "The last time this happened, over 40% had reoffended within 6 months. That created more victims, and we're fully expecting that this is to be the case again. In response to the data, the new Scottish Tory leader Russell Finlay said this mass reoffending comes after it emerged that the vast majority of victims were not even told about the early release, and represents yet another example of SNP soft touch justice. Worryingly, the SNP government's botched prison building programme, coupled with the projected rise in the prison population, means we are likely to see even more offenders freed early by ministers. The SPS said while the emergency release programme provided much needed respite to its establishment staff and those currently in its care, it only considered it a temporary measure. The SPS stated, in recent months our population has risen sharply once more and remains extremely complex. This continues to have a significant impact on our staff and the time available to them to do their important work in supporting people, building relationships, turning lives around, reducing the risk of reoffending and creating a safer Scotland for all. Well, there you go. What was predicted by many has happened, where people who are in prison, you let them out early. Now, that's not to say if you let them out full term that crime rate comes down, but what it does, it gives you a bit of chance, with continued rehabilitation. But there's now at least 57 victims of crime now in the month of September that didn't have to be victims of any crime. And that's a bit damning. Another thing, and it was, what's his name, Scottish Tory leader, he said, and he knocked it in the head, I'm just trying to get this so I'm getting verbatim. Yeah, worryingly, the SNP's government's botched prison building programme. We've been waiting for a new jail in Glasgow for probably as long as the Highlanders have waited for new ferries in Scotland. We still don't know when it's going to happen. But there's been new prisons being touted for years now, and the Scottish National Party have failed to deliver. And I just don't understand that you go to court, you get found guilty of a crime, you get given a tariff, which is normally a predetermined tariff, and then we give you a reduction of about 40% for good behaviour. But we're now letting people out halfway through because of overcrowding. I don't get it. Just build some prisons. This isn't really that difficult when we've been talking about building these prisons for years. And the other thing you could stop doing is coming away with stupid offences, like hate crime, etc., which will, technically not criminal offences. But I would like to know out of the sort of 79,000 inmates we've got, what the breakdown in really stupid crimes are. Because that might be causing, or I would love to know the number of foreign inmates in the Scottish prison service, because if it's more than 477, then why not just deport them? We've got something like 11 or 13, between 11 and 13,000 prisoners nationwide who are foreign. Now, if we've got 10% of the prison population in the UK are in Scotland, that would kind of guess that we're probably talking about a four-figure number of foreign prisoners in our system in Scotland alone. My figures will not be far away. Which if you release them, actually, not released them, but deported them, that actually creates a bigger buffer zone of empty spaces in prisons than sending 477 prisoners out early. That kind of makes sense to me. I don't really see what the big issue is here. You'll say, but we can't do that. Yes, you can. Go and speak to your counterparts in Westminster and sort the job out. Because it's a travesty that you don't. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you've not already done so, please consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell. If you like the t-shirt, you get them down below. Quite like this, arrived this morning with my catchphrase. Have a great day. Cheery bye now. And But most importantly of all, unless you're SNP and these incapable ministers that can't really get much right in 17 years, not you. But
everyone else, have a great day. Cheerio, bye now.